Leave a like in 5 seconds if you want Thor to fight Adam Warlock in Guardians Volume 3. Welcome everyone to Marvel Hub. This is DK Dynamite, and today we're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, some potential major plot points that have just arisen, and even the possibility of Zac Efron playing Adam Warlock in the MCU. So shout out to the Martian over on the Marvel Studios Spoilers Reddit. His name's actually Eddie the Martian to be exact. He put together a bit of a roundup of everything that was reported and leaked in the past few weeks from 4chan, because unfortunately the original source who was reporting this information about Zac Efron is just gone. He just completely disappeared from the face of the earth and is no longer available on 4chan. So luckily, Eddie the Martian put together a bit of a compilation featuring that information before it was taken down on 4chan. So in terms of when Adam Warlock will be appearing in the MCU, I think the easiest answer for that is of course Guardians Volume 3, and all that we've really heard about Adam Warlock in the MCU in the past year is that he wouldn't be appearing in Avengers 3 or 4, which ended up being true according to James Gunn, because obviously he's writing the character, and it wouldn't have made sense to really introduce such a massive powerhouse like Adam Warlock in Infinity War or Endgame, even though he played a pretty large role within the Infinity War storyline in the comics. But I think in terms of the MCU, the Infinity Saga worked just fine without him, even though in the comics he holds a pretty close relationship with the Soul Stone, harnesses its power, and is a pretty powerful character overall, who I don't think could really go toe-to-toe with anyone except Thor or Captain Marvel if you want it to be a fair fight. So in terms of if he's going to be appearing in Guardians Volume 3, I think the best answer is yes, but if Thor is with the Guardians in this movie, because obviously it was teased at the end of Endgame that Thor would be joining the Guardians for a couple of adventures. So if the Guardians faced Adam Warlock in Volume 3, it would make sense to have Thor with them on the team, since to go against a powerhouse like Adam, there's nobody really on the Guardians team who could really go up against him, unless Drax was of course overpowered like in the comics, but he's kind of been nerfed in the MCU unfortunately. So I think Thor is the best bet for that matchup. Now, in terms of some potential plot details for Guardians Volume 3, obviously we have Adam Warlock being teased at the end of Volume 2 when Aisha of the Sovereign created a perfect being to take her revenge on the Guardians. That of course lines up pretty well with who Adam Warlock is from the comics. He was of course created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and first debuted in a Fantastic Four issue in 1967. So he was originally created by scientists called the Enclave, and Adam was created as an artificial perfect human who initially calls himself him. So after rebelling against his creators and having a conflict with Thor, him decides to leave Earth and travels into space. So if you guys are kind of getting the connection here, it makes perfect sense to have Thor join the Guardians right when Adam Warlock is about to be introduced, because they're still paying pretty close attention to the source material, except instead of having the Enclave create Adam Warlock, you have Aisha and the Sovereign. So a bit of a retcon according to the comics, but they're still putting together a conflict with Thor, which makes perfect sense for Guardians Volume 3. So let me know what you think of that down below in the comments section. But the other thing I wanted to report on was a pretty interesting tweet from Roger Wardell. If you don't know who this is, I'll have a link to his Twitter down below in the description. He tweets every couple of months or so, and usually when he tweets, about 99% of the time, everything in the tweet ends up coming true. So he's been a pretty reliable source for the MCU over the past year or so. So in terms of what he said about Guardians 3, he said, Rocket's creator is the High Evolutionary. Drax is in for a big surprise when he discovers his daughter is alive. Rocket also gets a love interest in the form of Lila. Nebula and Star-Lord will grow into closer friends. So in terms of how he has this information is of course unknown, but that does call for some pretty interesting storytelling when it comes to Guardians 3, because there may be more Guardians movies in the future, but I think Volume 3 will be the last Guardians movie with the core group that we all know and love in the Guardians of the Galaxy. So you may still see Star-Lord, you may still see Mantis, you may still see Nebula maybe in a future Guardians movie, but in terms of Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, they may go off and do other things when it comes to the future of the MCU instead of being the core Guardians team that we know from Volume 1 and 2 and from Avengers 3 and 4. So in terms of the High Evolutionary being the villain of this movie, that would be pretty interesting, because you would see them going against the High Evolutionary while also dealing with kind of a side plot with Adam Warlock, but then that side plot will end up turning into something pretty massive massive as they set up the future of the MCU when it comes to galactic adventures. Now, in terms of Drax figuring out that his daughter is alive, that's also a pretty huge plot point because they've dealt with Thanos. Thanos was always on his mind since Guardians 1, since Thanos is of course responsible for killing his wife and daughter. So how Drax's daughter is alive is currently unknown, and how he didn't know about it for so many years is going to be an interesting plot point. So that's going to be a great fit or a great ending for the Guardians that we all know and love from the MCU. So the fact that Rocket will also get a love interest is also great. Once again, this is going to be a big wrap up for the Guardians that we all know, and I think it's going to really be a nice send off, similar to Endgame being a nice send off for most of our Avengers. Now, in terms of Nebula and Star-Lord growing closer into friends as they search for Gamora, I don't think that means they'll grow closer in the sense that they'll begin developing feelings for each other. I think it'll just mean that they'll begin developing more respect for each other as they both have a very common goal, which is to find Gamora. Now, as I've also mentioned before, I'm pretty sure they're not going to waste most of Guardians 3 trying to make Gamora remember who she is and all the, all the memories she shared with the Guardians over the past 4 or 5 years. I don't think they're going to waste time doing that. I think they'll probably deal with that plot point within 15 or 20 minutes. They'll just have Nebula sit down with her and show Gamora all of her memories over the past couple movies that they've been together in. So I don't think they'll waste most of the movie trying to convince Gamora who she is and essentially re-establishing things that we've already seen and understood within Guardians 1 and 2. James Gunn is so much smarter than that, and they've clearly set up Guardians 3 pretty damn well within Avengers Endgame. But let me know what you think of all that down below in the comment section. This has been DK Dynamite. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn notifications on to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Marvel news and information. And peace out, everyone.